Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to be replacing the power steering pump on my 2011 JK Unlimited Sport. I'm also going to be pulling all of the steering fluid out of the reservoir and replacing it. Not quite a flush, but I've got about 58,000 miles on the Jeep, so I figure all that fluid just may as well come out and get some fresh fluid in there. Do realize it's never power steering fluid in these Jeeps, it's actually automatic transmission fluid, the ATF Plus 4, that goes into the Jeep. So here we go. So before we get started, which Jeep owner doesn't like to show off their rig? So here's what my baby looks like. Like I said, a 2011 JKU. And let's go ahead and pop the hood and see what we got going on. So there's the power steering pump. And you can see that there's obviously some fluid leakage going on there, coming out through the holes in the pulley and being slung around. And it also shows that we're going to have to get the air box out of the way so that we have good access. Looking at the hood, you can see right there is where a lot of the power steering fluid is being slung. And that's how I noticed I had a problem, was it was showing up there on the hood. It's really not too bad. And it's really still drivable. The leak must be really small in the seal in the pump, because when I check for the fluid level in the reservoir, it's really not going down at all. But may as well replace it before it becomes a really bad problem. And this particular pump, it's really pretty straightforward to replace. There's a hose clamp there, there's 3 bolts, and getting it on and off should be easy. I haven't tried it yet, so we'll have to see how it goes. So before I put the Jeep up on jack stands, to make my life easier, I'm going to go ahead and remove the air box down here. So first, you need to remove, the way I do it anyway, remove the sensor. Don't forget to plug that in when we're putting it all back together. And then I loosen up this clamp, and I just take the top and the hose off the intake with me. Also, don't forget to disconnect this hose right here. And then the air box has, well, it has 4 clips. One of them is back here under the radiator. I can never get it, so I never put it back. And let's see, there's one more clip back down here. Pop that off. Pop the hose off the intake. Everything comes off. Piece of cake. And you've got your filter. Inspect that. Mine looks great. And then you've got the air box itself. And you just need to take this little snorkel off if you want, if it comes off. And then this just pops straight up. Just like that. It's only held in place by those 3 little rubber grommets with these posts. So it just really goes straight up, and you just get all that stuff out of the way, and you got much better access to the power steering pump. So I rented the power steering pulley puller from AutoZone, and that's what we're going to use today. And we're going to go ahead and take the pulley off while it's still on the Jeep. That way you don't have to worry about the pulley or the power steering pump moving around. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is just put a little bit of grease on the threads, just to make it move smoother, and we don't want to break the tool. So this 2 clamshell pieces of the puller, you just need to find the side that fits snugly against the pulley. Put one side in and back the bolt out a bit so that the whole thing fits inside. You run it all the way to the bottom. So there you go. You put the other clamshell piece on there, and then the sleeve fits over top and holds the whole thing together. And then you snug it up, and now you're ready to go. Alright, so here we are 2.5 weeks later, because when I went to pull the pulley off of the pump that's on the Jeep, the pulley actually broke, and this lip right here, all the way around, was just breaking. It just came right off with the tool. It basically made it impossible for me to get the pulley off. You know, I probably could have banged on it or something and eventually worked it off, but if I ever have to, you know, do this again, you know, I may as well drop the 20 bucks to get a new pulley. My leak really wasn't that bad, so not dropping a lot of fluid, so I took the extra time, ordered a pulley online. It's a Mopar OEM replacement pulley. Link in the description for the pulley. It's my new pump, and I'm going to use the AutoZone tool to install the pulley. So first off, you want to find the center screw that will actually screw into the shaft there on the pulley. The one that's installed on the bearing, the way it came from AutoZone is not the right size. I actually need to install this one with, as you can see, it's stepped down as far as thread size goes. So all I'm going to do is thread the bearing off here and set it on here, and we'll go from there. So it's pretty straightforward. Just set the pulley on top, then you want to thread the screw in all the way down till it's fully seated. So with the adjustable wrench and the ratchet, you're just very slowly tightening the adjustable wrench to push the pulley all the way down the shaft and up against the seat. Okay, so we thought maybe it was all the way down, but you can see there's still a gap there between the shaft and the front of the pulley, and it needs to be flush, so we're going to put it on some more and tighten it down some more. A couple more turns on there, and now you can see that the shaft is flush with the top of the pulley, so we're in good shape. So the next thing we're going to do is jack the Jeep up off the ground, and for me it always tends to want to go backwards a bit down the driveway when I lift the front end up, so I always put something behind the rear tire, but put it on jack stands. You want the wheels just a little bit above the ground, because we're going to use steering back and forth to push the fluid through the system. Alright, so I've got a fluid pump that I use for the differential and things like that, and so we stuck that into the reservoir, and we're going to pump out all the old fluid. So now with the pump still installed and all the plumbing hooked up, I'm going to have a second person steer from left to right a few times, and that's going to push more fluid back here into the reservoir. So go ahead and steer left to right. We pumped out about 14 ounces of ATF fluid from the reservoir after steering back and forth. So next we're going to disconnect the hoses from the steering pump, so airline out of the way. So we'll be squeeze clamp here to pull that off, and then we'll unscrew this hose from the inside from the pump housing, and then it'll be three bolts that we can access through the holes in the pulley to disconnect the pump from the block. Go ahead, you want to pull up. There you go. So now we just loosen it. And then we pull the line out. Okay, now that we have both lines off of the pump, we are going to pull the pump off of the block, and there's 3 bolts that hold it in. You can see 2 of them there through the holes in the pulley, and just 3 bolts, undo them, save the bolts, pull the pump off the block. Piece of cake. Alright, so we got the pump out, piece of cake, just those 3 bolts, and obviously some fluid there dripped in the back. Go ahead and clean that up a little bit, but then putting it back on is going to be doing what we just did, but in reverse. The torque on these 3 bolts is 20 or 19 foot-pounds, so we'll be doing that as well. So we're all set to put our new pump and pulley on, and we're going to leave it comes with caps over both of the connection points on the pump, so we're going to leave those in place while we put the pump back in. Once we get it tightened up, we'll install the hoses. Alright, so now that the pump is torqued down, we're going to remove the plastic cap off of the high pressure end, and then we'll move the cap off of the return, and I got those the other way around. This is the inlet, and then the high pressure is the return. Take the caps off, and we will put the hoses back on. Alright, now that we have the pump installed, we've got the hoses reconnected, the next thing we're going to do is put ATF plus 4, because that's the fluid the brake system uses. Don't use brake fluid, use ATF plus 4. We're going to fill the reservoir most of the way, and then we'll get in and steer back and forth a bunch of times to get fluid back into the system and start purging the air out. Okay, we've put it all back together, got the airbox back on, all the hoses connected, topped off the fluid, so now we're going to go ahead and start it. It's all spinning and running, and that sounds great. And now we're going to steer back and forth a bit to get some more air bubbles out. Just go stop to stop a few times, looking for some air bubbles to coming out. Everything's running nice and smooth. And then we will top off the fluid to the max cold line, and that will be it. So I hope this video was helpful. Links in the description on the parts that I use, and altogether, if you don't count waiting 2.5 weeks to get a pulley in the mail, it took about an hour or so. Alright, so one final note. Once you've got everything hooked back up, you test it out and you go for a test drive and fill up any fluid that you might need to. I didn't really have to because we did the air purging there when it was up on jack stands. One thing worth noting though is that we had the Jeep in run, so the ignition was in run when we were moving the steering back and forth to unlock the steering wheel. Well, we had the airbox electrical connector was disconnected, so that created an engine code. So after we did our test drive, we had the check engine light was still on, so disconnected the negative terminal on the battery for 10 to 15 seconds to clear the code, and sure, the code didn't come back after another quick drive to return that tool to AutoZone. So if you have to clear your codes, that's the reason why. Don't worry about it. Clear it out, you'll be good to go. And I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below, and I'll do the best I can to answer what I can. But hopefully the video was helpful.